Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm going to show you how to make a simple copper head badge from a piece of 15mm copper pipe. The only bicycle I have that doesn't have a head badge is this, so I'm going to make it for this, but first I've got to make this thing more presentable because the way it looks at the moment it doesn't deserve a head badge. This is an Italian bicycle. Lombardo is the brand and Ferrara is the model. They retail for about €280 in Europe. I think I'm just realising what a big job this is going to be. I mean, under this paint I think we're going to find quite a lot of really bad rust. I think I'll just take it off, remove all the rust from it, and then see what kind of finish that leaves on the steel. Well, that turned out to be quite a lot tougher than I had expected. The whole pedal assembly had to come out.
Now, I could use an angle grinder with a flat wheel, or conceivably even a drill with a radial wire brush. But in my experience, there's nothing quite like a good stripper. So I've bought this quite expensive paint stripper, and we'll see how we do with that. Now, I know I just said that you can't beat paint stripper, but that presupposed that what you're trying to remove is paint. It's not working on this stuff, and I've got a funny idea that this thing hasn't been painted, it's been powder coated. And in defence of that hypothesis, I present the fact that this thing has no primer on it beneath the white paint. A posh, expensive brand like Lombardo wouldn't do that without good reason. So I'm pretty sure this has been powder coated or plastic coated in some way, and that's why the paint stripper's not working. So I've had to resort to the angle grinder with a very fine flap wheel. I sploshed some of this rust eater on the rusty bits, which went black at the time, and have now gone a weird black and white colour. I think I'd better prime this. There. That looks better already. Having painted the chain guard a sober and dignified shade of maroon, I've masked it up to take a couple of little pinstripes. I thought I'd do something similar with the mudguards as well. Now that I've put it all back together, I hope you agree that it deserves a head badge now. Let's make one for it. As for raw materials, we have this length of 15mm copper pipe. Doesn't look very promising now, does it? But if I cut off a chunk about as long as my index finger, and then slit it along its length, we'll be able to open that out into a flat copper sheet. First, I'll heat it up until it's cherry red, and then either let it air cool naturally or quench it if I'm feeling impatient. If it was steel and I were to heat it up till it was cherry red and then quench it, I'd actually be hardening it, assuming it had a decent amount of carbon in it. But with copper, it softens it. And what I want to do is soften this to make it as easy as possible to work. Well, it's been a while and it's starting to look as if this particular flame doesn't have what it takes to get this piece of copper bright red. So, I'm going to quench it as it is and skip that stage. It'll be interesting to see whether we can make a head badge without first softening the copper. Well, at least it helped clean it. The piece of pipe looks very different now. Let's open it out flat and clean it up. After giving it a rub with a cloth soaked in vinegar, this is what we've got.
a piece of nearly rectangular copper sheet measuring 4.5 centimeters by that much. Okay, now it's time for me to think about the design of this head badge, and for that I'll use paper. I want a shield-like shape, so I draw half of it onto the piece of paper, then cut it out, thus ensuring that it's completely symmetrical, and then I can transfer that shape to my piece of copper sheet. And now I can bring out my very primitive set of tools for giving this thing some form of embossed shape. And here they are, an old flat-bladed screwdriver and a round section steel bar sharpened to a dull point. And the first thing I'm going to do is use the screwdriver to define a line all the way around the outer edge. There's no hurrying this, you may as well put some music on, settle down and enjoy the afternoon, because it's going to take you quite a while. Here we go then. I've been going around the edge, placing my screwdriver like that, and then giving it a couple of whacks with the hammer. And when we turn over our piece of metal, we can see this line. So we're working from the back of the piece. And now that I've gone all the way around the edge with the flat-bladed screwdriver, you can see the form of the shield. Next, it's dots. For the dots I'm going to use this pointed piece of round steel bar. It's only mild steel, so it might not take the abuse, we'll soon see. But first, before I do that, I've got to flatten this out because it's become extremely convex. This is probably where repeatedly heating it up to cherry red and quenching it would help soften it, keep it soft, to make this sort of thing a little easier. But so far it's going very well without my having been able to anneal it properly. Now, I'm sure a proper head badge maker would meticulously measure and mark out where he's going to put all his dots, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to go around the edge and try and space them as evenly as I can. So there's the row of dots just beneath the top edge. I don't like doing this sort of thing on camera, but I'll just quickly show you how I go along the edges. Now that I've got down to the bottom on one side, I feel I should just reiterate that you really should mark out the spacing to get it nice and even. I'm being lazy and I've been lucky so far today with this, but I don't recommend that you do it this way. I recommend that you mark it out properly. That's all the dots done, so I'm going to now do another line just within that row of dots all the way around the edge of the shield. After the addition of another line inside the row of dots, the things become very heavily dished. I think it's going to be easier to flatten this out if I cut it out from the sheet at this point. I used an angle grinder to cut it out, but now I'll tidy up the edges with a Dremel and a file. Well, it's starting to get hard for me to believe that this started out life as a chunk of disgusting oxidised green copper pipe. Looks nice and shiny after a polish. Now we have the question of what's going to go in the middle. And to solve that problem, I've invested in a bottle of wine. I'm hoping that that windmill thing will fit neatly in the middle of here. My next move was going to be to paint this middle area the same colour as the frame of the bicycle, but it occurs to me that if I do that and then bend this till it's round enough to fit round the headstock, it may well be that the paint will flake off, so perhaps I should bend it first. I've bent it round and sprayed it. Now to cut that circular logo from the wine label. Okay, I've sprayed the middle area of the badge the same colour as the bicycle, and as you see here I've cut out part of the label of the bottle. When I began this project I knew that I had an old bronze coin and I was going to bend that and put it in the middle, but I can't find it, and this wine label will do. In fact it says LM, and that's rather handy because of course it's a Lombardo bicycle, though that's pure coincidence. So let's stick it on the bike. As you can see I've put a couple of fake rivets on it which don't actually do anything because I don't want to drill into my headstock, but this way at least it will look as if it's riveted on. I'm going to stick it on the bike. Here then is the finished bicycle with its badge. Well, I hope this little video has made it clear that you can at least have a go at hand beating copper without spending any money and wasting much more than a couple of hours if it doesn't turn out. I'm actually very happy with the results of my attempt to save a rusty old bicycle from the scrap heap. I hope you like it too. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching.